Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Once more, I'm going to revisit the top 50 westerns of all time. I apologize I wasn't here last week. I lost my microphone. I had to reorder one, and that took a few days to get here. And so I've got that ironed out now, and I wanted to get back to this. Film number 31 was a film done in 1959 called Rio Bravo. It starred John Wayne, Dean Martin, Walter Brennan, Ricky Nelson, Wood Bond, an old friend of John Wayne's, and a young lady named Angie Dickinson. I think she'd been in other things, but this was one where she really made a name for herself, and she was quite good in this. The film was directed by Howard Hawks, and in this film, Wood Bond's leading a wagon train, and he comes into town with a bunch of settlers, and during the film, he's shot in the saloon by a man named Joe Burdette, who is younger brother of the richest man in town named Nathan Burdette. Joe Burdette is arrested for this murder by John Chance, who's John Wayne's character, and Dude, who is Dean Martin. Dean Martin's character, Dude, is used to be the deputy. Now he's essentially a drunk, and everyone in town knows him as a town drunk. And guy even throws a silver dollar in a spittoon and tells Dude to go after it if he wants a drink. And that's kind of the way the film started. And they captured Joe Burdette. And essentially the whole film from that point is John Chance, Dude, and Stumpy, who is played by Walter Brennan, are in the jail. And they're trying to keep Joe Burdette until the U.S. Marshal arrives and they put him on trial. Of course, the whole film is also spent by Nathan Burdette trying to get his brother out of there. And that's what the film is essentially as. And Rio Bravo, in my opinion, is another one of these films, and I've talked about it before, another one of these films where it comes on, I'm going to have a hard time shutting it down till it's over. Walter Brennan's great in this. I thought Dean Martin was excellent as well. And it's just a great film from start to finish. This film was actually made. John Wayne didn't like the film High Noon, and he thought it was unmasculine, unmanly. The sheriff going about the town trying to get help to deal with the outlaw gang. And this film was kind of made as John Wayne's rebuttal of High Noon. And he just didn't think a marshal ought to go around asking for help. And so this film actually, he does that. He takes it and he doesn't ask for anyone to help him. And he goes around trying to keep a man, see a man gets justice. And this was kind of John Wayne's version of High Noon, or what they had in mind. And John Wayne just didn't like the film by his friend Gary Cooper, and they were friends. And Rio Bravo is just an excellent film. I enjoy it. I recommend it highly to you. If you haven't ever seen it, you need to. And it's pretty interesting to hear Ricky Nelson, Dean Martin, and Walter Brennan sing in this film, and that's well worth your time. Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson, of course, they were singers anyway, and you had Walter Brennan in, who obviously wasn't, but it's well worth your time to hear this. And it's just an interesting film, well done, John Wayne film that I greatly enjoy. And so I hope you'll check this out. Coming up at number 32 is a film that was made in 1960 called Sergeant Rutledge. Now I would be kind of surprised if most of you have seen this film, but I think a lot of it. Sergeant Rutledge was directed by John Ford, who directed a whole bunch of John Wayne westerns. Also directed the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And John Ford got to know Woody Strode, who was a black actor, a former football player. And Woody Strode was just a great actor. And he played in Liberty Valance as well. But this one pretty much starred Woody Strode and Jeffrey Hunter. And Woody Strode is the first Sergeant Braxton Rutledge. And he's accused of rape and murder. And the guy defending him, trying to get him off, was First Lieutenant Tom Cantwell, played by Jeffrey Hunter, and Constance Tower was in this film as well, playing a character named Mary Beecher. And Mary Beecher believes in Rutledge's innocence, that he didn't commit this crime, didn't commit this rape and murder. Through the whole film, it looks pretty much like Rutledge is going to be found guilty, and of course, if he's found guilty, he'll probably be hanged, or at that time, probably firing squad. And so it's a really good film. We're talking about a film made in 1960. It dealt with some serious matters as far as race and things such as that, and racial issues, and things that weren't tackled very much in films. Now, John Ford, one thing about his films, a whole lot of them dealt with tough subjects. Of course, The Searchers was that way, and he dealt with topics such as race, the ending of the frontier. He dealt with matters such as just racial issues. And John Ford was pretty forward-thinking in his direction of films, and his films weren't just westerns. They dealt with things that were tough and issues that we still debate and argue about today. And so John Ford was just a great director, and this film is one of his better works, and it's probably this film, besides being one of his better works, is also one of his lesser known works, because I don't think a lot of people know about this film, and I definitely put it in my top 50, and I have it as number 32. So if you've never seen Sergeant Rutledge, you need to look it up. You need to watch this film, and I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll thank me for mentioning it to you. But Sergeant Rutledge is a good film. There's plenty of action. There's plenty of drama and suspense to it, too. I hope you'll check his film out. Woody Strode was a fantastic actor, and I just think he deserves to be seen, and he deserves to be recognized more for the actor that he was. And he was pretty much ahead of his time as far as black actors in major roles. And so I think this is a film you ought to check out. I think you'll be glad that you did, and I think you'll thank me for it. But Sergeant Rutledge, number 32. Coming in at film 33 is a film made in 1972, and it's The Cowboys. This is directed by Mark Rydell. It starred John Wayne, Roscoe Lee Brown, Bruce Dern, A. Martinez as a young man, Robert Carradine as a young man, and also Slim Pickens, who is in my opinion, one of the greatest actors of all time in Western films, along with being a pretty accomplished rodeo star, pretty much like Ben Johnson was. Both of them were great in the rodeo, and film was kind of a secondary career they came to. But The Cowboys starts out as John Wayne is a rancher named Will Anderson, and he needs to move a bunch of cattle to market. And everyone that usually helps to drive these cattle to market, and I think he's driving them about 400 miles across Montana to, I believe, to Belle Fourche. And he can't get anybody. There's nobody in town left because all the people that have worked in the past and driven cattle for him and he's hired as cowboys, they're all gone. They've all taken off going looking for gold in California. All the people he used as cowboys are all off they've all taken off in the gold rush. And there's no cowboys around left to move these cattle for Will Anderson. And Will Anderson has a kind of crazy idea from his buddy Jim Slim Pickens, and they go to a schoolhouse, and they're watching these boys in school, and Will Anderson gets the idea of hiring these boys as cowboys, and there's nobody else to help him, and a lot of these kids are just young guys, and some of them are barely in their teens, and some of them probably younger than that, and he decides to hire them to drive these cattle for him. Along the way, before he starts off on the drive, met by a man named Asa Watts in this film, but he's also talked about as being called Longhair. His name is Bruce Dern. And Bruce Dern winds up being, him and his boys ask Will Anderson to hire him, but he lies to Will Anderson about where he came from and the places he worked for, and Will Anderson knows he's a liar. And these guys all been in prison, and John Wayne tells him he doesn't mind the man being in prison, but he doesn't have any tolerance for a liar, and so he won't hire him. John Wayne hires a black cook named Jeb Nylanger, and he's played by Roscoe Lee Brown, who is a magnificent in this role. If you've never seen Roscoe Lee Brown, or you have and you enjoyed him, you need to check him out here. The role he played in the Cowboys, is just superb. You ought to check that out, because Roscoe Lee Brown as Jeb Nylanger is fantastic in this role. He probably should have been nominated for an Oscar in a supporting role in this film, because Roscoe Lee Brown as Jeb Nylanger was just excellent in this film, and he's well worth watching. But he also, as an older guy, he kind of takes these kids under his wing, and he teaches them the same time John Wayne as Will Anderson's teaching them. And they don't only herd these cattle, they become men throughout this cattle drive. And this film is well worth watching, and I think none of you will regret it. A. Martinez, who I've actually met a couple times, is in this film, and I've actually met A. Martinez at a Western Writers Convention, and Robert Carradine's in it too, and I met him at a Western Writers Convention as well. These guys are both young in this film, teenagers themselves, and they get to work with great John Wayne. And the film The Cowboys, for a long time, I couldn't watch this film, and I couldn't watch Bruce Dern in anything. So, and I won't tell you any more about it, but I will tell you need to watch it. If you've never seen it, you need to go back and watch The Cowboys. And that film is number 33 in my top 50 greatest Western films of all time. My film coming in at number 34 is from 1980, and it's a film called The Long Riders. The Long Riders is an interesting film for a lot of reasons. This film is about the James boys and the Younger brothers trying to hold up a bank in Northfield, Minnesota. And this film, what's fun about it is the brothers are played by James and Stacy Keach. The Younger brothers are played by Robert, Keith, and David Carradine. And the Miller brothers are played by Randy and Dennis Quaid. And there's also the two brothers, Christopher Guest, and I can't remember his brother's name, but they play in this as well. So the film is just made up of a teaming of brothers. And that's one thing that makes this film so interesting, is that you have brothers playing James boys, you have brothers playing the Youngers, you have brothers playing the Miller boys. And this film is probably directed by Walter Hill. It's acted out in slow motion. The shootout in town is very well done. It's rather violent. The violence in the film will remind you a whole lot. You might think it was done by the same director of The Wild Bunch, and that's kind of how the film's done. But it's the thing that's interesting about this film is the fact that it has all these brothers acting in it, and it just it's a well done film. A lot of it I don't think is very accurate, but I think the shootout in town comes out pretty good. And I think that's probably about as accurate a film about a shootout like which occurred in Northfield, Minnesota, is probably you're going to see Hollywood ever make. It's well done, and you just can't miss the brothers playing brothers in this thing, because I think whoever thought of that, I think it was a masterful idea, and get them all together. That's pretty interesting. I mean, all these brothers have been actors together, and then put them in there playing brothers. I just think it's just superb. It's a film you ought to see. If you haven't seen it, you really ought to check it out. And The Long Riders from 1980, that comes in at number 34. Now, I know we talked a lot about John Wayne in this episode. I think we had I've had 3 films bookended by 2 others in between them, but 3 John Wayne films in this bunch. But number 35 is a film from 1971 called Big Jake. And I've heard at least from one of you in here has notified me and told me that Big Jake was one of your favorites. And it's one of my favorites as well. That's another one of those films. If I walk into a room and it's on TV, I'm probably not going to get anything done till it's over. Big Jake is just that kind of film, and it's well worth watching. It stars John Wayne, Richard Boone, Patrick Wayne, Christopher Mitchum, Bruce Cabot, and Maureen O'Hara. And frankly, Maureen O'Hara, in my opinion, is the greatest female character in Western film there ever was. I don't believe there's ever been anybody greater as a female actor in Western film than Maureen O'Hara. And her ability to go toe-to-toe with John Wayne is just extraordinary. I think she's the only person in cinema at that time that could go head-to-head with John Wayne and make you believe it. And Maureen O'Hara, I love watching her in film, and she just super. And she's great in this role as well. But John Wayne is a man named Jacob McCandless. And the McCandless family is pretty wealthy. Jacob McCandless and Mrs. McCandless, who was Maureen O'Hara, they're separated. And I don't know whether they're divorced or not. I don't think they really say. But anyway, they don't live together anymore. And John Wayne's grandson, who's played by Ethan Wayne, John Wayne's son in real life, John Wayne's grandson, or Jacob McCandless' grandson, is kidnapped by a bunch of outlaws led by Richard Boone. And they kidnap him and kill some of the McCandless people and shoot one of Jacob McCandless' son, who is played by Bobby Vinton, who has a really short role in this film, but a good role for another one of the singers playing in a John Wayne film. But this film starts out that way, and John Wayne's called back to go get his grandson. Maureen O'Hara calls him back. She puts the Texas Rangers on it in one side, and you see them taking off in their old turn-of-the-century automobiles, and John Wayne just with horses and pack horses going down there after him. And it's very well done. It's a kind of a crossing of two eras in American history. You know, you have the automobiles run by the Texas Rangers going to try to retrieve Jacob McCandless' grandson, and then you have McCandless himself doing it old school, still part of the frontier, still riding a horse, still leading pack horses, going after his grandson as well. And it's kind of a clash between the old frontier and the new century that's coming about. And this film is it's really superb. And John Wayne, as only John Wayne can, goes back there and John Wayne, as only John Wayne can, goes back there to retrieve his grandson. And this film is it's magnificent. I told you, it's just one I can't walk away from, such as Rio Bravo and Big Jake. They're just a couple films that just grab me from the minute they come on, and I have to see it. And this film is actually narrated, a portion of it, by Robert Mitchum, which is kind of a reteaming of John Wayne and Robert Mitchum together. And I tell you what, the man just has a terrific voice. Robert Mitchum just superb, and his he voices some of the narration in this film. But this is well worth your time. If you haven't seen Big Jake, you need to. I saw this at a movie theater when it first came out. My parents took me there, and as we often did, we're in an old station wagon, and we got to see this. Back in those days, westerns and, films, you went to a drive-in, you usually had two features, and the big feature was second, and so a lot of times you'd see the early feature, and as kids, I think we curled up and went back to sleep, never saw the second film, and Mom and Dad would watch the second film, and they'd get a little peace and quiet away from us kids for that one. But this was one of those films we saw at those times, and so I saw Big Jake when it first came out. Of course, that tells you I'm old. I really enjoyed this film. I hope that you'll take it in and see it for yourself. Once again, we're back with our top 50 films of all Western films of all time, and this is numbers 31 through 35. 31 is from 1959. It's Rio Bravo. Number 32 is from 1960, and it's Sergeant Rutledge, starring Woody Strode. Number 33 is from 1972. It's A Cowboy, starring John Wayne. Number 34 is from 1980, and it's The Long Riders, and starring the Dennis Quaid brothers, the Keach brothers, and the Quaid brothers, and the Carradine brothers. And so it's number 34, and number 35, starring John Wayne again, as he did in 3 of these films, is from 1971, and it's Big Jake. Anyway, I thank you for stopping in this week. I'll be back soon with another 5 films for you in my top 50 westerns of all time. If you've seen anything here that you've enjoyed, please hit like and subscribe. And I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll hit like and subscribe and come back again. Anyway, that's my 5 out of my top 50 greatest western films of all time. Thank you for stopping in. I'll catch you again soon. Bye now.